Democrats hold their national convention, the media continues their U.S. Postal Service conspiracy, and Steve Bannon is arrested. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show. Alrighty, guys. So I hope everyone is having a great week. Happy Saturday. So I'm going to get to the DNC convention that happened this week and the dumpster fire that was, and also the U.S. Postal Service conspiracy the media continues to push, and also Steve Bannon. But first, I'm going to give you our COVID-19 update. So in terms of, as we've been seeing for the past couple weeks, of course, the numbers continue to go down. Here's the kind of the updated graph for example, the state of Georgia, which is, of course, that's where I live. That's why I keep bringing it up. But, Georgia was one of the ones that kind of had the first resurgence. And was starting to, of course, obviously, that's going down day by day. And the deaths are kind of starting to peak, too, here in Georgia as well. So that's also good news. And throughout the United States, too, it is starting to peak, like as on average, and the death rate has dropped significantly. So that's all good news in terms of kind of the numbers we're seeing and everything. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Of course, as we've seen throughout also the rest of the world, it's started to resurge all throughout the world in France, England, Germany, and all over. Only place is really doing fine right now is, of course, Sweden. And that's because, they did it right from the beginning. They didn't fully lock down or anything. It is kind of just, they just decided to go with herd immunity, and they're doing good right now. So that's goodness, which is, again, a strategy which is done from the beginning. But, whatever. It's done and over with, and thankfully we are starting to see this kind of dwindle down again. And what's good about kind of this time around is that there's this whole talk about this is still apparently part of the first wave of COVID, but there's the kind of theories going around is that since it hit so hard the first time around, the second wave might not even happen here in the United States. We probably we're pretty close to already reaching herd immunity, and that's also probably due with the whole T-cell immunity thing that's been going around. It was released by Science Magazine. And so, yeah, this is all great news. But of course, the media, the reason why I keep bringing kind of COVID updates is because I want to give you the good news that the media is not giving at all. The media is not giving any sort of positive news in terms of COVID. Absolutely just none. So, for example, here's a piece from the Hill about the Miami-Dade public school district in Florida, and basically the piece says nearly 600 Miami-Dade public school staff been diagnosed with COVID. And given the release date of this article, which is on August 20th, you would think, oh my goodness, 600 staff was affected during this time. Well, that's not. The headline is completely kind of misdirecting, if you will. Basically, the 600 people who have been affected. First of all, school hasn't started up in that district either. So it has nothing to do with school starting up and people flooding out of schools or anything. And plus, they're going to begin remotely anyway, so that doesn't make sense. And plus, as it says right here, the first sentence of the piece, almost 600 employees within the Miami-Dade County public school system have tested positive for the coronavirus over a span of 5 months. 5 months. That's literally an entire pandemic or epidemic here in the United States. So within the course of 5 months in this area, 600 employees from the school district have tested positive. Now, when we put it in terms of the population of this county, That's a relatively kind of small amount, and plus when it's spanned over a 5 month time frame, that makes a huge difference than if it was just within like a couple weeks. So this is purposely manipulating and misleading to kind of scare people from really wanting to go back to school, because there's, again, the fight over reopening schools and everything continues day by day. Like, you see every single day the media release article after article about people testing positive for COVID-19 after returning to school, when literally it was just the very first day they returned to school and they were testing positive. That's not how it works. You don't just suddenly go back to school, be around people, and suddenly that same day you're tested positive and you got it from the school. That's not how it works right here. But this is what the media does. They're trying to make this as bad as possible. And again, the numbers don't support the panic, as we've seen. On average throughout the country, it is starting to dwindle down. It started to dissipate. So, I mean, really, by the end of this month into end of next month, this could be almost over at this point. Which is the thing is, that's what the media doesn't want that to happen, because they want, again, their goal is to make this look as bad as possible for Trump in order to hurt him in the election. That's really what all this is about. Because trust me, if Biden were to win, this would be done. The pandemic would suddenly be over. It would just disappear. It would be done. Which will tell you this is all political from the beginning. And one of the more kind of the media gaslight from constantly coming from these people it's astonishing. Really astonishing. Especially in terms of Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, who presided over the worst state to be hit by COVID. And New York was absolutely ransacked by COVID, especially New York City. And he was responsible for forcing nursing homes to take in COVID patients, which is why really the death rate is so high in New York because of that. And now the media is propping him as this is the example that we should follow right here. And what's so crazy about this, that New York, especially New York City, New York overall, has about almost 0 deaths per day and maybe about 74 or lower cases a day. Like, seriously, it's hardly going around. Like, probably New York has already reached herd immunity, but nothing is opened up yet. Nothing. Which does not make sense. And it tells you it's all political. It's all virtue signaling, saying, see, I'm doing my part right here. I'm going to keep it locked down. And that's why we crush the virus, which is not true. There's no evidence that the lockdowns even worked. All it did was delay the effect of the spread. That's all it did. That's why you're seeing so many in the places that did lock up. That's why you're seeing kind of this massive surge, because so many people were locked in early enough where it didn't spread initially, but once they were brought back out, it spread out. But the places that didn't lock down, it went to the population, and then that was it. That's pretty much it. And one of the more kind of disgusting kind of gaslighting comes from the governor himself, Andrew Cuomo. So, again, he botched the COVID-19 response completely. His state, he did a horrible job. He's probably the worst governor in the United States right now. But, given the the media prop up he's been getting, he's literally releasing a book called American Crisis: Leadership Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic by Andrew Cuomo, which is going to be released on October 13th. Seriously? What kind of... Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? You're presiding over the worst state in the entire country, and you're going to sit there and say, people should follow our lead? No. No, I'm sorry. No. It is just so freaking stupid overall. But I mean, this entire like COVID pandemic is it's really maddening to see just how the masks completely come off in the media. They used to kind of bait themselves as these objective journalists, if you will, but now that has completely come off, and now their true agenda is being shown in real time. It's quite crazy to see. But again, that's enough of the COVID stuff for right now. So let's jump into the dumpster fire that was the DNC convention. So I'll be honest, I didn't actually watch it. I just kind of watched the highlights of it because, again, why would I exactly put myself through that? But let's just say, from the stuff I did watch, it was very interesting to say the least. Let me just say this: Democrats have nothing, absolutely nothing. The only thing they have going for them is that they're anti-Trump. That's pretty much all that they have. That may work. That may work. But again, remember back in 2012, Romney and Ryan did the same thing with Obama. They ran on the ticket that it was all about Obama and how terrible he was and everything, and ended up losing. So I think really Democrats are making a huge mistake about trying to make this all about Trump. Again, it may work because Trump is, on average, a little more unlikable than Obama. But again, it's my theory is it probably won't work for them. But besides that, they have nothing. They have no real policy ideas, like just literally nothing. This entire convention was a complete, again, dumpster fire from the beginning. So as an example, we're going to start with the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. And here's what she had to say about Joe Biden and how about his character and everything. Here's a video right here.
I know Joe. He is a profoundly decent man, guided by faith. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country. And he listens. He will tell the truth and trust science. He will make smart plans and manage a good team. And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize.
Okay, so basically what she's saying is that if you let Biden, the pandemic will be over. He will literally solve the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Which is interesting. If he has the answers right now, why not just say it right here and now? If he has the answers, just put it out there. But of course, he doesn't have the actual answers to solve because, again, this is a virus. Viruses are been around for many years, since the beginning of time. But they're completely under control, uncontrollable. That you can't really. It's very hard to contain it, especially if they mutate. So especially for viruses like this, the best thing, like I said many times, is to really get to herd immunity. Allow, especially the younger people, get infected with it, and that's how you reach herd immunity. But the idea from Michelle Obama here is that if Biden is elected, he will solve it like that. And of course, their way of solving it is mask mandate and lockdown until a vaccine comes around. Which, good luck with that. I dare y'all to try a full-on national lockdown because I'm sure that's going to go over well. It went well the last time around, even just for the individual state lockdowns. So again, good luck with that. But this wasn't kind of the only thing that happened. There were many speakers. Barack Obama came on. Many other people came on the DNC convention and everything. There were a lot of other speakers. And they even have Bill Clinton came on talking about the decency in the Oval Office and everything, which is funny coming from him. considering what he did in the Oval Office, and Barack Obama talking about, caring about the Constitution and everything, which is completely laughable because he didn't like the Constitution at all. He completely ignored it throughout his presidency. But one of the highlights has to come from Hillary Clinton herself. So, yes, so Hillary Clinton's back, and still worse than ever. So here's what she had to say about Joe Biden right here. Here's the video right here.
And don't forget, Joe and Kamala can win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me. So we need numbers overwhelming so Trump can't sneak or steal his way to victory. Text vote 30330 to get started. 100 years ago yesterday, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. It took 7 decades of suffragists marching, picketing, and going to jail to push us closer to a more perfect union. 55 years ago, John Lewis marched and bled and work was unfinished. Tonight, I'm thinking of the girls and boys who see themselves in America's future because of Kamala Harris, a Black woman, the daughter of Jamaican and Indian immigrants, and our nominee for vice president. This is our country's story, breaking down barriers and expanding the circle of possibility. And to the young people watching, don't give up on America. Despite our flaws and problems, we've come so far. We can still be a more just, equal country with opportunities previous generations could never have imagined. There's a lot of heartbreak in America now. And the truth is, many things were broken before the pandemic. But as the saying goes, the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places. That's Joe Biden. He knows how to keep going, unify, and lead, because he's done that for his family and country. So come November, if we're strong together, we'll heal together. We'll redeem the soul and the promise of our country, led by President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
My goodness. I can't imagine why she lost the election. I just can't imagine why. Just seriously, like again, this is why she lost right here. Again, she is just she's so mechanical and like, non-sincere and just unlikable overall. So, and she's still like, her thing she said at the beginning, like, you could still win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me. And like we need numbers overwhelming so Trump can't sneak or steal his way to victory. So she's still continuing on the idea that Trump somehow still stole the election from her, that she still should be the rightful president of the United States, which, again, that's been proven wrong. The idea was that he used Russian help to win the election has been proven wrong, and that was done a long time ago. So, she is just, thank goodness that she's not president. Thank God she's not president, because I can imagine what that would be like right now. Alright, so I'm going to continue on with the whole DNC stuff that was talked about and everything. But first, you got to go over to YouTube or the God and Freedom blog to check out. So not only you get the rest of the DNC stuff, but also the stuff about the whole U.S. Postal Office conspiracy theory the media is pushing, and also Steve Bannon being arrested, and also towards the end of the episode where I go over the book of John, starting John chapter 18 today, and also the good stuff and bad stuff of the week. And remember, you can find me on your favorite podcast listening sites, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. This is the God and Freedom Show. Alrighty, so let's continue on right here with the DNC stuff. So it continues on. Like, here's one of the more hilarious parts of it is that AOC was one of the speakers for the DNC convention, and she literally nominated Bernie Sanders for president. Which last I checked, that he wasn't even in the campaign. Right, he wasn't even in the race right now. So this is kind of very interesting. So here's a video right here for that.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, in el espíritu del pueblo and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Solid stuff from AOC right there. So fresh, so face member of the Congressional Democrats. Solid stuff. So yes, let's nominate the very person who's not even in the race right now. The communist that was running for the 2020 election. Way to go, AOC. So that's just, again, this entire Democratic convention was just a complete, again, this is the only way I could describe it, a complete dumpster fire. They have nothing. I mean, they could talk about many of their kind of key issues they want to talk about, like climate change, like the racial stuff and everything, and now, of course, gun control. And here's what they put out about gun control right here. They brought out Emma Gonzalez and some of the Parkland survivors who were members of the March for Our Lives campaign that started with the Parkland shooting back in 2018. And here's what that sounded like. Here's a video right here.
They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence. We call BS! They say a good guy with a gun stops the bad guy with a gun. We call BS! They say guns are just tools like knives. We call BS! They say that no laws could have been able to prevent the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred. We call BS!
You know what's funny about everything, like she was saying right there, about how, they say that a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. We call it BS. That's not BS. That's actually true. And everything that she was calling BS on is actually true. It's actually pretty true in terms of statistics and numbers and everything. So just because you say something call something BS, doesn't mean it's actually BS. It's probably, again, this is true right here. All the shit calling BS on is true. And nothing is worse than the Democrats using kids who were like survivors of a horrific shooting like this. Like, the Parkland shooting was horrific. I think about 17 people died in the shooting. And so the whole movement of using kids as props to push your agenda like this is just so disgusting. And Democrats continue to do it day by day. And they say, if you don't agree with the policies, that means you don't care about children. It's the same thing they do with COVID now. You say, if you don't agree with mask mandate, or if you don't agree with lockdowns, that means you want to kill grandma. It's all disgusting politics crap. That's all it is. But again, they just have nothing. The Democrats have absolutely nothing. And it's just funny to see people trying to like build them up to be these awesome, like moral leaders, or moral, just like superiority or superiors or something. It's pretty hilarious. But as kind of a final thing about the DNC, here's kind of one of the worst things I've seen coming from them. This, just prepare yourselves. It's very interesting. Here's the video right here.
Good night.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. Think it's time we start. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their mind, getting so much resistance from behind. We gotta stop. Children,
what in the world is that? I love the kind of the Twitter member or account that posted this. She said, "Everyone at the DNC was on shrooms tonight. Changed my mind." Seriously, that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen come from the DNC. And they brought out a lot of weird stuff throughout the convention. So this probably hits the marks right here. But again, they just don't have anything. And what's so crazy, again, like I said earlier, is that there's people who are trying to prop them up as these moral superiors. Like, for example, Bill Kristol, who was a quote-unquote conservative before Trump came along. Now Trump has completely drove him out of his mind, and now he's pretty much a Democrat at this point. So here's what he had to say about kind of the DNC and everything. For someone like me, the Democratic Party is problematic in all kinds of ways, as surely I am for them. But it's a political party, as we're seeing this week. That's at least trying to speak for decency, for character, for the country. About Trump's GOP, one can say no such thing. Seriously? So they're speaking for decency, for character, and for the country. Because they just love America. Forget everything they've said about America for the past few months. They love the country. But here's what the Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring had to say about that. The party of decency and character. Abortion on demand, defunding the police, funding Iran, ending free expression, free exercise, assembly, except BLM, Second Amendment, due process, electoral college, and burning cities. That is pretty much exactly their entire belief system. You're going to sit there and tell me that they're the party of decency and moral character? Seriously, guys? And plus, probably the biggest issue for me, at least, is the abortion stuff. Like most Democrats at this point, Joe Biden included, is supporting abortion on demand and wants to be funded by taxpayers. Which, again, like, come on. The founders will be like rolling their graves so fast that they're pretty much be digging new tunnels at this point. That's not right. I'm not. You certainly using our money that we work for to be used to killing children in the womb. That is so as wrong in so many ways. But here's kind of a piece by the Washington Examiner, kind of going over Kamala Harris and her belief system about abortion and everything. And this, for everyone who's pro-life, honestly, you need to take this into consideration. Like, even if you're a Democrat, even if you are a Democrat, but if you're pro-life, you really need to take this into consideration right here. All the Democrats on this stage that night support abortion on demand, including Kamala Harris. Here's basically her kind of belief system in terms of abortion and why it matters. That's actually what the piece is called. Kamala Harris's abortion views and it should matter to everyone. It was a shock to nobody that Joe Biden would choose a running mate in the line with the party platform on abortion. But Senator Kamala Harris is not merely pro-abortion, then again, neither is the party platform. The 2016 Democratic platform called for repealing the Hyde Amendment, which means making taxpayers fund elective abortions. The party has again embraced this position. It is worth noting that a majority opposes taxpayer-funded abortions. When it comes to third trimester abortions, which are championed by Harris and the Democratic Party, large majorities support making the procedure illegal. This includes Democrats those who self-identify as pro-abortion. Such views have been analyzed by Gallup and reported on by multiple outlets. This concern is echoed by Democrats for Life of America. In a statement, the organization mentioned in part that Kamala Harris's selection as our party's VP nominee does not provide pro-life Democrats with any assurances and will, in fact, further alienate 21 million Democratic voters. They have been left out of the party for quite some time. Her support for abortion without almost any restrictions is far out of line with the majority of Democrats and Americans on this sensitive issue. Harris's actions prove her stance on abortion. As California's Attorney General, Harris was instrumental in the Reproductive Fact Act, which would have required anti-abortion pregnancy centers to disseminate notices to clients that California has public programs that provide immediate, free or low-cost access to comprehensive family planning centers, including all FDA-approved methods for contraception, prenatal care, and abortion for eligible women to determine whether you qualify. Contact the county social services office at insert the telephone number over there. Violators face fines. Forcing these centers to advertise abortion compels them to participate in pro-abortion speech. The law inevitably was challenged in court in the 2018 case of NIFLA versus Bakura. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled by a 5-4 decision that the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates will likely succeed on the claim that the FACT Act violated the First Amendment. I remember this was a huge controversy at the time, where hospitals were basically being forced by California to post places where women can get abortion, which it completely Again, like I said, it violates the First Amendment on all grounds. As a senator, as a senator on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Harris has had many memorable moments questioning judicial nominees. This notably applies to such nominees who happen to be anti-abortion and Catholic. Harris asked now Judge Brian Busker, or whatever, about his role in the Knights of Columbus and a charitable organization. Were you aware that the Knights of Columbus opposed a women's right to choose when he joined the organization? She asked, have you ever in any way assisted with or contributed to advocacy against women's reproductive rights? How dare Busker be part of a fraternal organization that upholds the Catholic Church's teaching on abortion? If we're up to Harris, Busker and anyone like him wouldn't be fit to serve on the bench. When running for president, Harris communicated a position that should be alarming to any supporter of federalism. Through her Department of Justice, certain states would have to obtain pre-clearance before enacting anti-abortion laws. With how both her words and actions speak loudly, Harris will surely expect to be involved in abortion policy as vice president. This would likely include being consulted on judicial nominees. Harris would also be called upon to cast a tiebreaker vote in the Senate. Harris might become president herself if she and Biden are elected, making a mistake. Harris would do that if she could to force the promotion of abortion and muzzle those against it. This should be alarming to all, regardless of their views on the issue. This is completely right. And again, I am completely against abortion. I think it should be banned all throughout the country, overall, in any and all circumstances. And seriously, having a side party that supports it on demand and even wants to force taxpayers to pay for it, that, despite my critics of Trump, I'll continue all day, every day to support him over these people right here. That's just how it rolls right there. I cannot support a party that supports the killing of the unborn. I just can't. It is completely maddening to see stuff like that. Not only that, the views on the racial stuff is, again, that's gone so radical on all levels. So here's what someone put. I don't know who this is exactly, but Ben Shapiro posted it the other day, and here's what this person said about racial problems in America. To fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the U.S. Constitution that enshrines two guiding anti-racist principles: racial inequity is evidence of a racist policy, and the different racial groups are equals. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold, as well as racist ideas by public officials with racist ideas and public official clearly defined. It would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism, compromise formally trained experts on racism, and no political appointees. The DOA would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequity, monitor those policies, investigate private racist policies when racial equity surfaces, and monitor public officials for expressions of racist ideas. The DOA would be empowered with disciplinary tools to wield over against policymakers and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policy and ideas. as far as I know, that is completely unconstitutional. And like seriously, a department like a bureaucrat like the DOA or whatever that they want to start up, they have no power like that. They don't have any power to actually do stuff like that. So that's insane right there. So again, the Democrats they have gone so insane and just so radical over the years. And again, they just have nothing. And this really puts President Trump in a good place to win the election. And actually, there's a new poll that came out from, is it out of Wisconsin? I think from CNN or whatever, where he's basically tied with Biden, which is really good because Wisconsin is a battleground state, a heavy battleground state. And the fact that he's tied with him, that is excellent news. And the gap overall in the polls have closed dramatically over this time. So really, President Trump has a chance to take this and run with it, as long as he doesn't say stuff like this. So here's what he had to say the other day about QAnon, which is a garbage conspiracy theory group online and all that. But here's what he had to say about that.
During the pandemic, the QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers. Can you talk about what you think about that and what you have to say to people who are following this movement right now?
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate. But I don't know much about the movement. I have heard that it is gaining in popularity, and from what I've heard, these are people that when they watch the streets of Portland, when they watch what happened in New York City in just the last 6 or 7 months, but this was starting even 4 years ago when I came here, almost 4 years, can you believe it? These are people that don't like seeing what's going on in places like Portland and places like Chicago and New York and other cities and states. And I've heard these are people that love our country and they just don't like seeing it. So I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me. And
Come on, dude. This is not necessary. And now this is where the media comes in and saying that, see, he supports QAnon. No, I mean, he said that he doesn't know anything about them, which he should have stopped there. But he goes on and saying, oh, I mean, other than, they like me and everything. This is part of the problem with Trump, that he had, his view is that, he supports people that like him, and they don't like him, he doesn't support. Which is a very, it's very kind of weird contention of doing politics, but whatever. He did the same thing with John Lewis, saying that, I don't know much about him, but I know he didn't come to my funeral, or to my inauguration or anything. So, come on. This kind of stuff is not going to help him in the election. And especially when he constantly tweets stupid stuff out on Twitter day by day. Again, this is where he needs some kind of tweet checker or someone like that to kind of keep him in control. If he were to hold any kind of discipline right now, I think will win by, not on his side, but he will win by a good margin. But, the election is 1,000 years away, so anything can happen at this point. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when the debates actually start. I can't wait for that. But also, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with the RNC this week, the RNC convention. It'd be very interesting to see how they do all that. Alrighty, so now let's move on to the U.S. Postal Service conspiracy. So, I kind of mentioned this last week, but now there's this entire conspiracy by Democrats in the media about the U.S. Postal Service, and that Trump is trying to defund it to sway the election or something like that. Here's actually the Connecticut Attorney General William Tong talking about talking about the U.S. Postal Service and how Trump is supposedly trying to sway the election with it. Here's the video right here.
General Tong, I'm going to start with you because the Postal Service stopping the removal of letter collection boxes in Western states until after the election. That's after the USPS had already started reducing post office operation hours in several states, removing those boxes. What do you say to what's going on right now?
I think the president, it's clear, is intentionally trying to defund the Postal Service and block us from voting and disenfranchise and suppress the vote for potentially millions of Americans across the country. I think the president is clearly trying to sabotage this election and snatch victory away from a race he seems very clearly to be losing.
But not even trying to hide it.
Not even trying to hide it. You talked about the blue mailboxes. We haven't talked about the big mail sorting machines in big cities. Almost 600 of them, or more than 600 of them, that the Postal Service is decommissioning out of the blue. 10% of these big sorting machines, so they can't process the mail. Why are they doing that in major cities across the country where there are large pockets of urban voters, voters of color, Democratic voters? We all know why.
Before the
Solid stuff from the supposed ejected journalist at CNN, John Lemon. Like this is like, again, QAnon crap right here. This whole conspiracy that Trump is trying to defund the U.S. Postal Service to cheat in the election is completely nonsense. Again, the blue mail boxes they're talking about being removed, that's been happening for years. Because what happens is that they take it and then replace it with refurbished ones. Because over time, those boxes, they're metal, so they do get rusted and everything. And as far as the mail sorting machines, those machines were not being used. They were not being used, so they're just sitting there wasting money. And most businesses, when machines are just wasting money like that, not being used, they get rid of it. This is exactly what the place I work at. We just had these machines to build stuff, and we haven't used it. We actually, the company that we built it for kind of moved out, and so we pretty much removed all that equipment. So it's all conspiracy, like QAnon type stuff. It's not relegated to CNN. It continues like all throughout the stuff. So here's a tweet from a guy named Rex Chapman, who was, I think, a basketball player at some point. And he, this is in Burbank, California. Here's what he had to say about this. It's a picture of the kind of blue mailboxes, the blue kind of drop-in mailboxes or whatever. And they have kind of locks on them. And here's what he said about that. In your entire life, have you ever seen a locked mailbox at the USPS? Now you have. A disgrace and immediate threat to American democracy. Shame on them, shame on the GOP. Where are you, Senator and Majority Leader? The joke is that this has happened for years. And the reason for these, the locks on them is due to theft. There was a lot of kind of mail theft around the area. So, especially during the weekends, where the post office is not even operating, they put these red locks on them. And it's not even, you still drop mail on them, but you can fully open it up and then get mail out of there, which makes sense. It makes complete sense for that to happen. But of course, this is happening now is all part of conspiracy by the GOP to sway the election. It's quite something. It's quite really something to see right here. So naturally, the media has been going after President Trump for this, and also the Postmaster General for this. So here's what the Postmaster General had to say about questions about it and everything. And here's what he had to say about it.
We're being told that you're limiting overtime, and this could possibly add to backlogs. Are you limiting overtime, or is that being suspended right now, and people will work overtime if necessary to move the mail out efficiently every single day?
Senator, we never eliminated overtime. That's
it's been curtailed significantly, is what I understand.
And it's not been curtailed by me or the leadership team here.
Curtailed significantly. It's gone down. It's been limited. Will you commit to
since I've been here, we've spent $700 million on overtime. Overtime runs at a 13% rate before I got here, and it runs at a 13% rate now. I did not.
If you have a policy, you can submit that to me. I'd appreciate it. Will you commit there will be no post office closures or suspensions before November 3rd?
I confirm post office closures was not a directive I gave. I gave. That was around before I got here. There's a process to that. When I found out about it, and it had the reaction that we did, I've suspended that until after the election.
Well, we've heard about the sorters. You addressed that earlier. Will you be bringing back any mail sorting machines that have been removed since you've become Postmaster General? Will any of those come back?
There's no intention to do that. They're not needed, sir.
So you will not bring back any processors?
They're not needed, sir.
Okay. I've got questions about independence and transparency. Prior to implementing the changes that you put forth in the postal system, did you discuss those changes, or are there a potential impact on the November election with the president or anyone at the White House? And remind you, you're under oath.
I have never spoken to the president about the Postal Service other than to congratulate me when I accepted the position.
Alrighty, so yeah, good on him for actually like bringing in facts to this whoever this is, kind of trying to almost trap him into saying something like almost lie because he was under oath about it. So good on him bringing in facts, saying these mail sorting machines are not being used. That's why they're removed and everything. So yeah, this entire conspiracy theory about the QAnons or about the mail stuff is completely unnecessary and it's very stupid, very, very stupid. But it's all part of a game to really, in order as an excuse for Democrats to use if Trump were to win the election, is just be an excuse to say that the reason why he won is because he cheated with the mail-in votes. And again, what's funny about that is that people were actually protesting the U.S. Postal Service, policy changes and everything. So you feel comfortable enough to actually go down and protest with hundreds of people, but you're now okay enough to simply go to a voting booth in person, even with a mask. Like, I'll gladly wear a mask to a voting booth, and if it means voting in person. But there's so many problems with mail-in voting. We cannot have that as universal throughout the country. We just cannot. There's so many problems that will come with it. Alright, so now on to Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon was arrested this week. And the reason why he was arrested because it's over fraud charges against him. And also a couple other people were charged with it. Because he had a fundraiser for the Trump's border wall that Trump was planning to build, and there was some fraud allegations that came out of it, and he was arrested for it and charged for it as well. So yeah, I mean that's great stuff, which proves the whole Trump's idea is that saying that I hired the best people and only the best people wasn't quite true. But again, this has nothing to do with President Trump at all. There's no allegations that President Trump actually knew anything about this. So, he's not involved in this whatsoever. But it doesn't matter to the media. They want to try to spin this as saying that, here's a piece from the Washington Post literally titled, if it will load, Bannon's indictment confirms that the American right is made of con artists. Yes, so one guy proves that the entire riot is made of a con artist. Okay, sure. If you thought Stephen K. Bannon was going to end up in handcuffs, you might have predicted that it wouldn't be for a small-time con. After all, Bannon went from running on a far-right online publication to the heights of U.S. conservatism as the first CEO of Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's campaign, and then as chief strategist in the White House. He even had ambitions to take his political project global. But it turns out the scheme that Bannon has been criminally charged with is indeed a species of a penny ante grift. Yet it's sort of a grift the American right has been running on its own voters for decades, which makes this absolutely fitting. And it goes on and on about how, just American rights fully people and everything it's complete nonsense, but just highlights the unmasking in the media and how they completely are now just partisan hacks on news outlets. Everything. So that's all fun stuff. Alrighty. So now let's get on to scripture real quick. I don't have much time left. My battery's about gone here. I have a little bit of time. But we're going to be starting in John chapter 18 today. So this is where Jesus is arrested and betrayed by Judas. And remember, you can follow me along if you want, and I'll be the New Living Translation. After saying these things, Jesus crossed the Kidron Valley with his disciples and entered the grove of olive trees. Judas, the betrayer, knew this place because Jesus had often gone there with his disciples. The leading priests and the Pharisees have given Judas a contingent of Roman soldiers and temple guards to accompany with him. Now, with blazing torches, lanterns, and weapons, they arrived at the olive grove. Jesus realized all that was going to happen to him, so he stepped forward to meet them. "Who are you looking for?" he said. "Jesus the Nazarene," they replied. "I am he." Jesus said Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. As Jesus said, "I am he," they all drew back and fell to the ground. Once more he asked, "Who are you looking for?" And again they replied, Jesus the Nazarene. "I told you that I am he." Jesus said, "And since I am the one you want, let these others go." He did this to fulfill his own statement. I did not lose a single one of those you have given me." Then Simon Peter drew his sword and slashed off the right ear of Malchus, the high priest's slave. But Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword back into your sheath. Shall I not drink from the cup of suffering the Father has given me?" Jesus at the high priest's house. So the soldiers and their commanding officer and the temple guards arrested Jesus and tied him up. First they took him to Annas, since he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest at the time. Caiaphas was the one who told the other Jewish leaders, "It is better that one man should die for the people." Alright, so I'm going to kind of stop there for this time being. Just kind of, first I'll just save kind of battery time, and so I'll continue on with it next week. But yeah, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of what really Jesus came down to earth for right here in the book of John. So he's been arrested, and he's going to be crucified and everything, and be resurrected from the grave. So it's going to be cool to go through. So alrighty. So now let's get on to the good stuff and bad stuff of the week. So some good stuff of the week. So President Trump did this kind of cool thing on the 18th, August 18th this year, of course this year. So basically, it's on the anniversary of the women's right to vote in the 19th Amendment. And what he did is that he basically pardoned Susan B. Anthony, who was one of the chief women's suffrage leaders during that time. And here's what he had to say about that. Here's the video right here.
Incredible document that I'm signing, and I wanted to just add something because this was brought up a week ago, and I was so surprised that it was never done before. Because later today, I will be signing a full and complete pardon for Susan B. Anthony. She was never pardoned. Did you know that? She was never pardoned. What took so long? And you know that she got a pardon for a lot of other women, and she didn't put her name on the list. So she was never pardoned. And we're for voting, that's right. That's right, she was guilty for voting. And we are going to be signing a full and complete pardon. And I think that's really fantastic.
So that's great stuff. That's great stuff. I mean, you can kind of make fun of it saying, okay, she's dead or whatever, but it's still pretty cool that, you know, he's doing this right here. I mean, in fact, you know, Susan B. Anthony did a lot of great stuff with the women's suffrage movement. You know, she, you know, pretty much starved herself to push this movement to the front lines and everything. So she did a lot of great stuff. So it was really great on President Trump to kind of formally like pardon her and everything. But one of the most hilarious parts about this is that after it, the left literally canceled Susan B. Anthony. Literally canceled her. Here's what, this is from Now This News. And here's what was said about Susan B. Anthony by them.
Susan B. Anthony doesn't deserve your I voted stickers. Hi, my name is Luria. Every election year, women cast their ballots and trek to Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. They proudly place their I voted stickers on the headstone of women's suffrage heroine, Susan B. Anthony. They have perpetuated idealized versions of Anthony and her white colleagues, such as Carrie Chapman Catt and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Evidence of their ruthless racial bias has been pushed to the shadows, enabling the erasure of their women of color counterparts who also fought tirelessly for the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony only appeared to care about black people when the status quo was in her favor. In 1864, Women's Loyal National League President Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Anthony, the League's secretary, both signed a congressional petition in support of the 13th Constitutional Amendment to abolish slavery. Their petition garnered nearly 400,000 signatures. However, when the 15th Amendment was ratified, giving African American men the right to vote, Anthony, Stanton, and her colleagues were enraged. Lori Ginsburg, a history and women's studies professor at Penn State University, spoke with NPR in 2011 about her book, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, An American Life. There, she shared quotes in which Stanton stated that educated, virtuous white women were more worthy of the vote, and her fear for future women if these degraded black men were allowed to vote. Years prior, when speaking with Frederick Douglass at an 1886 meeting of the American Equal Rights Association, Susan B. Anthony famously asserted, "I will cut off this right arm of mine before I will ever work or demand the ballot for the Negro and not the woman." Of course, in the 19th century, when only white men were able to cast a ballot, there were disagreements among campaigners about which disenfranchised group deserved the vote first. Whether Anthony was referring specifically to the white woman or all women, regardless of race, is irrelevant when you consider her abandonment of her abolitionist roots when black men were being heinously lynched across the nation for attempting to exercise their newly constitutionalized right to vote. Some people might argue that women such as Susan B. Anthony were just products of the times in which they lived, that she didn't live in an era that welcomed progressive ideals and outspoken opposition. But that's bullshit. Compassion wasn't invented in the 21st century. When African Americans were facing injustice at an inopportune time for her, Susan B. Anthony did nothing. Sometimes silence is more damaging than words. At the onset of the 20th century, Anthony was aligning herself with the likes of Belle Kearney, a Mississippi-born women's suffrage advocate and an outright white supremacist. In the words of Carrie Chapman Catt, the founder of the League of Women Voters, white supremacy will be strengthened, not weakened, by women's suffrage. I believe that true equity in women's rights will never be achieved unless it is intersectional, validating and fighting for the plights of all individuals who identify as women. Next Election Day, when you're looking for a home for your I voted stickers, I suggest you make your way to Oak Hill Cemetery Crematory in Battle Creek, Michigan, where Sojourner Truth lies. a fearsome champion for women's rights, whose 1851 speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" is still heralded by educators and historians to this day. Or Oakwood Cemetery in Chicago, Illinois, where you'll find the headstone of Ida B. Wells, the activist and journalist who led an anti-lynching campaign following the ratification of the 15th Amendment and refused to be hidden by white suffragists who instructed black supporters to march in the rear of the 1913 parade in Washington, D.C. Or place your sticker within the Fannie Lou Hamer Memorial Garden in Ruleville, Mississippi, and pay homage to the incomparably brave civil rights activist. She overcame police brutality. She was fired from a job for trying to register to vote, and President Lyndon B. Johnson himself tried to draw attention away from her speeches. She was still, without a doubt, one of the most powerful speakers of the era. The pursuit of justice does not have to be an exclusionary journey, and although Susan B. Anthony couldn't see that, doesn't mean you have to settle for her narrow view of victory. I'm not saying Susan B. Anthony was the most racist fraud who ever lived. There were many more racist white women suffragists than I've named here. There were also white women suffragists who didn't resort to racism to sustain their agenda. Jessie Daniel Ames was a suffragist from Texas who founded the Association for Southern Women for the Prevention of Lynching. It was fully integrated and peaked at 40,000 members. What I want is for the names of the women of color who withstood violence and disenfranchisement while fighting for the right to vote, often without the help of their white counterparts, to be given their due. Do the research, learn their names, and think about who really deserves your gratitude when the next election comes around.
Great stuff right there. Great stuff right there coming from Now This. And really the only reason why they put this out is because President Trump pardoned them. I doubt that if he didn't pardon Susan B. Anthony, that they would have put this out there. I just have my doubts about that. It's so hilarious about it. Like, seriously, like, Trump should come out in favor of mask and mandatory lockdown, and to see what the Democrats and media say, no, we had to open up, masks don't work and everything. He should really come out and do that, see and play that reverse psychology. Alright, so let's get on to the bad stuff of the week. Alright, so it's the bad stuff of the week. So this is kind of a really sad thing that happened with the Trump family. So President Trump's brother, Robert Trump, sadly passed away last week. I think he had some heart issues and he was put in the hospital and just he sadly didn't make it. So, and they actually held his funeral today and everything, so yeah, prayers definitely go out to President Trump's family and all that. But, as usual, even with stuff like this, the left and the media they just don't really have any decency at all. They just don't have any. So here's two obituaries for two people. One is for Robert Trump, and one is for the, who was it again? Sorry. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was the Islamic State ISIS leader. So here's what the obituary for Robert Trump had to say. Robert Trump, younger brother of President Trump, who filed lawsuit against niece, dies in 1971. So that's basically saying that's who was known for filing a lawsuit against his niece. And here's what they had to say about Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, a steer religious scholar at the helm of the Islamic State, dies at 48. A steer religious scholar. Seriously, that was a headline from the Washington Post back when he was killed by U.S. soldiers. That's wonderful stuff. Probably the most disgusting stuff to come out of this is from a guy named. If I let McPeter is slow for some reason, come on. A guy named Andrew Feinberg, and here's so President Trump put out this tweet saying, "Robert, I love you. Rest in peace." And it's obviously on the day of the funeral. And Andrew Feinberg literally said, "Not sure Twitter works in the hereafter." Are you kidding me? He's literally, saying, rest in peace and saying, I love you too, his brother. Even on Twitter, Many people have done that for years. I mean, he did that himself with John McCain. He said, "Rest in peace, John McCain." And he has the audacity to say, "I'm not sure how Twitter works like that. In the hereafter, in the afterlife." What? That is so gross on so many levels. Really, that's really disgusting stuff. That just tells you just how politics has really damaged our culture right here. It's really gotten bad. Alrighty, so I'll be back here next week with all the latest. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God and Freedom Show. If you enjoyed this episode of the God and Freedom Show, hit that like button and follow the page to get more content. You can also find me on your favorite podcast listening sites like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Thank you for listening or watching.